Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another exciting episode of Between the Lines. This podcast is produced by the Media Studies Department at the Institute of Business Management. आज हमारे पास एक ऐसी शख्सियत मौजूद है जो कि ताल्लुक़ तो उनका कॉर्पोरेट लाइफ से है, लेकिन साथ में वो एक मुसन्निफ़ भी हैं। इंग्लिश में कहानियाँ लिखते हैं और कराची के बारे में उनकी एक कहानी लेजेंड्स ऑफ कराची के नाम से कुछ साल पहले शाये हुई थी। उसमें उन्होंने मुख्तलिफ़ किरदारों के बारे में बात की है। ही हैज़ टॉक्ड अबाउट कैरेक्टर्स दैट वी मे नो, दैट वी मे नॉट नो, दैट वी वुड लाइक टू नो, एंड ही हैज़ टॉक्ड अबाउट everything about Karachi. He is Muhammad Ali Samejo. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for being part of our podcast. So, पहला सवाल जो कि शायद लोग आपसे पूछते हों, कॉर्पोरेट प्रोफेशनल टर्न्ड नॉवलिस्ट, ये जर्नी, ये जो इक्वेशन है, ये क्या है?
Okay, so ये journey थोड़ी सी इसके पीछे एक और बैक स्टोरी है. It's like a different life. But I wasn't always a corporate professional. मैं पहले when I was a student, मेरा ताल्लुक बहुत briefly media industry से भी था.
Okay.
My father was Muhammad Samejo, a producer on PTV. And उनका 30 years का career था in television production. तो वो सिंधी and उर्दू dramas उन्होंने I think उनके 100 credits से above हैं. At a certain point मैंने उनको assist करना start किया था in drama editing. तो for Sindhi dramas मैं उनके साथ edits में assist करता था. And I also had a very brief career as an actor.
Okay.
There's no proof of it, so don't look for it. उसके अलावा I directed a couple of plays, but then when my father passed away, so I had to look for something stable, and that's when I transitioned into corporate. तो वो एक बिल्कुल ही totally different lifetime था मेरा, and when I got into corporate, it was a different story. But I would like to say कि मेरी family और मेरे father से लेके अब तक मुझ में भी and a couple of other relatives, we have this, I would say, tendency for storytelling.
Okay.
And हम लोग बहुत करते थे. मेरे father और मैं बैठ के films देखते थे, TV shows देखते थे, and storytelling became ingrained. तो उसमें ये था कि I knew stories, I had stories, and I could come up and imagine stories because we would get inspired. And one of the biggest themes that I had was कि भाई, if I saw a story, I would like, okay, fine, but what if it went a different way?
Okay.
So while I was in corporate, and this is not very long ago, मैं थोड़ा सा disenchant हो गया था with the way Pakistani drama media was going. And a friend of mine, who also happens to be an IoBM alumni actually, तो उसके साथ एक discussion हो रही थी, and we were like कि यार आजकल के drama में, it's all repetitive, it's all doom, gloom, mazloom and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, well, she knew my background, and she's like, all right, well, why don't you write one of the dramas? And I'm like, पता नहीं. I don't think it'll get aired. नहीं होगा, कभी भी नहीं होगा. If you've read the books, you should know कि नहीं होगा. And then she suggested something which, oh my God, it was like a flashbulb moment. And it was like, oh, why don't you write a novel? My first reaction was this exactly. Okay, what business do I have writing novels? I'm a language instructor. I'm a trainer professional. Mera kya kaam hai novel likhna? I can't do that. But I had been a reader, obviously, and wo storyteller ke qualities thi mere andar. So 2017, I started writing Legends of Karachi. I started writing some characters that I've always had in my mind. I've thought about people who live in Karachi. I've thought about the things they go through. I've thought about corruption. I've thought about street muggings. I've thought about gang wars. I've thought about domestic abuse. I've thought about all the stuff that you and I and everyone outside in this amazingly vibrant city go through.
Every element that makes up Karachi.
Every element and then some. Because Karachi, if you think about it, in Legends of Karachi, Karachi itself is a character. It's the central character.
Exactly.
And the point is that Karachi is not something that you can predict. Karachi is not something that you can know for sure कि ये चीज़ है. I've lived in Karachi all my life, and even I don't know कि Karachi कहाँ तक extend करता है. I've been as far as Orangi Town, I've been as far as Korangi, I've been as far as east and south, but there's so much more to it. And a lot of it is because of the people that make what Karachi is.
Exactly.
There are people
Absolutely.
coming in, there are cultures that are intermingling and living in this harmonious relationship that, well, yeah, there are highs, there are lows, there are absolutely horrifying situations, but the sole survivors of this story are the people of Karachi. And Karachi does not let you escape. It's one of those things that keeps you locked in and it challenges you, okay, bhai, let's see what you've got. And being a Karachite myself, I'm pretty sure I haven't gone through all those challenges in my life, but there are so many people that I've seen, so many people that I've talked to. This is their story. This is something that is going to tell their story to the best of my abilities.
Wow, wonderful. आपने बात की कि कराची itself is a character.
Yes.
I mean, हम लोग जब कराची में निकलते हैं, and I think all the viewers who have been to Karachi या जो कराची में रह रहे हैं, वो इस बात से एग्री करेंगे कि every time you go out, मतलब अगर आप तारिक रोड पे 10 दफ़ा गए ना, 11वीं दफ़ा आपको कुछ नया देखने को मिलेगा.
Oh, yeah.
कुछ ना कोई एक नया ठेले वाला होगा, कोई बंदा जो आपको सेल्समैन लगेगा, आपसे शायद बहुत पुरानी दोस्ती है इससे.
Exactly.
मतलब it's the energy of Karachi is so vibrant, yet it's so harmoniously blending everyone who's living here.
Everyone.
And I think that brings me to your book, which is Legends of Karachi. I was one of the first few people who actually bought it and read it. And मैंने इसका रिव्यू भी किया था.
And I was
जब
very
मैं आया
happy
था.
to read it. वैसे.
Because the story was so interesting. उसमें उसके बारे में तो आप एक्सप्लेन करेंगे, लेकिन जो मैं आपसे बात अब करना चाह रहा हूँ कि कराची itself is a character, but in this book, Karachi being a character, you have also added other characters. So there is this doctor Sabah Sheikh and Amreen Sani and this dude, GM Sand.
Yes.
वो कौन है?
GM Sand is an outsider,
Okay.
sort of. I don't want to get very political because there is this love-hate relationship between Karachi and what I don't want to call interior Sindh, but there you are. That's what it's been called, Sindh, basically. So like, there's this relationship, or it's basically a love-hate relationship between the urban and the rural Karachi, Sindhi. And what happens here is that GM Sand is one of the most, one of those kind of characters that Karachites would not appreciate. He's an elitist. He's a feudal. His entire family is based on those age-old feudal vaderas, all right? And on top of that, he is also the scion of a political party.
Yeah.
And you add all those elements and you bring that character into a city like Karachi, and there will be instant hatred or instant criticism. Ke bhai, we don't like this guy. But GM Sand, at his heart, is someone who loves Karachi. He does not have those similar feudal he does, obviously. It's in his blood. But for him, there is this side which appreciates Karachi for its vibrance, for its energy. And he is an outsider, but he likes being part of that city. He likes being part of that energy. That's why I also added two friends that he meets completely by chance in Karachi, and he becomes their best. He meets two middle-class guys named Adil and Imran, who are typically Karachite guys. Flat में रहते हैं, bike पे घूम रहे होते हैं, chicken roll खा
क्या चल रहा है, कहाँ जा
हाँ,
रहे हैं?
Exactly, right. Yeah, they're a little bit urban, college students, university students. I'm sure university students can relate to them.
Yeah.
And you meet a guy like GM Sand, जो कि instantly takes a liking to them and instantly, takes them around, shows them stuff and gives them new experiences. It develops that sense of empathy between them.
Okay.
Which I feel is something that we don't do a lot. Culturally, we don't look at, both those people don't look at each other and think, oh, you know what, we can live harmoniously agar wo political issues nahi aaye hamare beech mein. And agar hum log culturally empathy develop karte hain, so maybe we can sit down and talk about all those political issues. In my head, that's wishful thinking. Allah kare kabhi ho jaye, but who knows, right? Because I have that upbringing too. I'm a Sindhi guy who was born in Karachi, and I've always felt that, Karachi is in my blood, but also there's this huge gap between Sindh and Karachi.
Yeah.
And that is what I wanted to bridge between GM Sand and the people of Karachi. I wanted this outsider to look like someone who could be one of them. And he tries, which I hope that it comes out very nicely in the book.
I think it has. और उसका जो अच्छा एक सवाल मैंने आपसे करना है जो कि मैं हर ऑथर से करता हूँ. You have all these amazing characters. You have this Amreen Sani who is a journalist,
Yeah.
Dr. Sabah Sheikh who's a surgeon, GM San, and there's this Nadir. तो कहानी लिखते हुए आपके जहन में सबसे पहले कैरेक्टर आता है या कहानी आती है या दोनों चीज़ें साइड बाय साइड चलती हैं?
So, Legends of Karachi, you've seen, is very complex. बहुत layers हैं. There are like
सब plots भी हैं,
intermingling
सब characters भी हैं.
plots. शुरू में तो लोगों को समझ भी नहीं आता कि यार story है किसकी. But once it starts connecting and when the dots start connecting like this big map strings के साथ, then you realize, oh right, yeah. So I did, मेरी थोड़ी सी एक approach different होती है. And I've mentioned this quite a few times as well. I know how the story is supposed to begin and I know how it's supposed to end. So मेरे mind में points A and point Z already हैं.
ठीक है.
Now what I've got to do is I've got to add B, C, D and blah, blah, blah. I've got to add the rest of the letters in there. So मेरी trajectory ये होती है. Now I have people in mind. I know who I want to be in that story. Is it going to be a journalist? Is it going to be a doctor? Is it going to be someone like Nadir, who's a middle class guy, works somewhere, maybe unemployed? Who knows? I know who these people are, but as I'm progressing through that story, as I'm progressing through that plot idea, I start fleshing them out. उनके ऊपर फिर और मज़ीद आता है. Once I'm going through it, I realize that Sabah Sheikh has not always lived in Pakistan. She's come from the US. Once I flesh it out, I realized that Amreen Sani has a moral compass. And once I realize, once I'm going through the story, I realize, yes, this is the kind of personality element this character needs.
Okay.
And इसी की basis पे the story progresses. Now, the trick is how to make it look like this is the kind of thing जो कि वो end में जाके reflect करेगी उसको. And ultimately, obviously, there are writes, there are rewrites, there are edits and whatnot, and lots of stuff gets thrown out of the laptop. But ultimately, I realized that I've got to make this something that people will read and say, okay, you know what, this hits me very nicely.
Yeah.
So, yes, personality-wise, all these characters, Nadir, GM Shah, GM Sand, Amreen Sani and Sabah Sheikh, all of them reflect something about the people who live in Karachi and what their personalities would have been like. So there's a bit of everyone in Karachi in these 4 people, plus all the other characters.
Yeah.
So, that's what I aim to do. I want these characters to hit the reader. I want them to hit the reader and make them think, oh, you know what, this could have been my story. And why not? Why couldn't it be my story? So, yeah.
आई थिंक एक ऑथर के लिए यही एक चैलेंज भी होता है और मेरे ख्याल से उनका ड्रीम भी होता है कि जो कैरेक्टर्स होते हैं ना उनके वो रीडर्स के लिए रिलेटेबल हों. रीडर पढ़ता हुआ कहे यार ये मैं हूँ.
Yes,
जैसे हम
exactly.
बच्चे थे ना, हम नाइट राइडर देखते थे, हम कहते थे यार मैं माइकल नाइट हूँ, तू कुछ भी बन जा.
I would like to be the car.
Okay.
Very nicely. Yeah, the car was amazing.
उसका भी अपना कैरेक्टर था.
Oh, yeah, very nice. And it was the reason, I'm going to getting off topic here, but Knight Rider, you know that Michael Knight is. Michael Knight is the hero. Michael Knight is the dashing, charming, very fun guy. And then you've got Michael Knight. You've got Kit, the Knight Industries 2000 का जो AI है, which by the way is probably the best AI voice of all
I think
time.
अभी तक सबसे.
Oh God, yes. If my car starts talking to me in that voice, I'm gonna be like, yeah.
मैं तो निकलूँ नहीं कभी गाड़ी
नहीं
से बाहर.
वाकई में. But you see the parallel, right? You see the characterization of Kit is what would be like sort of like a polar opposite. It's cautious, it's safe, but at its heart, which is interesting for a machine, at its heart, उसकी सबसे बड़ी priority है the safety and security and the welfare of Michael Knight.
Yeah.
And obviously the welfare of everyone around it. Based on that, uski personality is like this perfect contrast, but also a perfect complement to Michael Knight. And that's what makes that series amazing.
नाइट राइडर जो कार है वो बेसिकली माइकल नाइट का गार्डियन भी है, उसका दोस्त भी है, उसका सब कुछ है. And talking about AI, let's talk about AI of today.
Oh yeah.
कि चैट जीपीटी और जितनी भी और प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं, क्या वो राइटर्स की जॉब्स खा रहे हैं?
Oh God. Where did this conversation come from? Okay. Oh
उसमें मैं
God.
भी शामिल हूँ by the way.
I remember this very interesting episode. You like Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Love
So,
it.
yeah, Back to the Future. There was an animated series उसके अंदर आई थी, and उसमें Doc Brown invented, in one episode, he invented this sort of like exoskeleton training device for Marty McFly. And what it does is it improves his reflexes to become a better baseball player. It has pre-programmed moves. But when Marty McFly says, you know what, with this, I could become like a major league baseball player. But Doc Brown specifically says, this device is for practice only to improve your own reflexes.
Okay.
So that's what I think AI is like. AI is supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to help. It's
Yes,
supposed to
yes.
make you see how you could improve. AI isn't perfect because let's face it, AI is something created by humans.
Yeah.
Ultimately, imperfect beings themselves who are looking towards perfection. So AI itself is a tool. It can help, it can cultivate, it can help you see the error of its ways, but that's all it can do. It can help. The moment you start substituting it, it becomes very tricky. Even in very high stakes situations, like for example, uh, AI robots are helping to perform heart surgery. But there is a human element required. Whereas
Yes.
an AI can calculate if I perform a particular suture or a particular step, वो अपनी probabilities count कर सकता है.
हाँ.
Yeah, there is a 60-40 chance that the person will survive or not. Based on that, it just knows कि भाई it's a 60% sure, I'll go ahead and do it. A human doctor will not do that. A human doctor will not take that risk because they know how frail a human being is and how unpredictable it is. So AI is obviously there to help, but I wouldn't want it to replace, the human element. I don't think it can, not yet. And if it does, then I don't think what's humanity then. You don't have humanity.
क्योंकि एआई में मसला ये है कि अब तो काफ़ी अर्सा हो गया हमें इस्तेमाल करते हुए. आप उससे जितना भी अच्छा कोई आर्टिकल या राइटअप लिखवा लो ना, वो फैक्ट्स फिगर्स डिटेल डाल देगा, लेकिन उसमें जो ह्यूमन इमोशंस है ना,
Yeah.
जो शो डोंट टेल वाला कॉन्सेप्ट है, या जो आपका अपना आपका एक पर्सनल नैरेटिव होता है, एआई कैन नेवर एवर रिप्लेस दैट, एंड इट कैन नेवर बी, यू कैन से, ए पैरेलल to human storytelling.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention all of that because at one point I used to write, freelance for a while until they started bringing in AI. And it's kind of weird because when we were doing that writing, right, they specifically asked us to not be too robotic, not be too monotonous, write from the heart. Which is obviously interesting because you want to appeal to your readers, you want to have that edge, and then they bring in a technology which jiska output hi yahi hai. It's not from the heart, it's robotic, it's monotonous, and they're preferring that over actual human made content. And so now you see that certain media houses or publishing houses are relying on that. Even now, abhi पिछले दिनों एक ad आया था that the boss is telling his employee, यार 5 मिनट में chat GPT से कुछ निकाल के लगा दो, and that's it, just do it. That's another problem with AI. AI isn't making your life easier, or it's not making your jobs easier. It's making your jobs faster. The speed at which AI generates stuff, whether or not it has proper checks or human issues and all, it's actually creating a situation for employees where they're being burdened with more work. क्वांटिटी इंक्रीज हो रही है, एंड बॉस कहता है कि यार चैट जीपीटी में ये आर्टिकल निकाल दो, 5 मिनट में वो निकाल के दे देगा, 10 मिनट उसको लगेंगे थोड़े से एडिट्स करने में, एंड इट गेट्स अपलोडेड. बॉस बोलेगा ग्रेट, नाउ डू अनदर वन एंड अनदर वन एंड अनदर वन. सो इट्स एक्चुअली fixating people on their screens in much more unhealthy ways than we ever thought. Previously, it would take me, a day to work on an article, but
Yeah,
I would give
exactly.
my heart and soul into
Yeah.
it. Now, if I knock that off
15
with
मिनट
AI,
में, हाँ.
15 मिनट में 8 घंटे मेरे पास दिन में अगर मैं आर्टिकल्स लिख रहा हूँ, my boss is going to give me more and more and more stuff, and this is what's happening. And it's turning people's creativity downwards.
Yeah.
It is making them become, like screen slaves, and it is definitely hurting quality overall. quantity to hai, you've got like plenty of quantity, and nowadays in our content hungry industry, you need to have more and more quantity. Quality, now that's, I mean, like, how do I actually predict quality? If AI is doing everything for me, usme bas maybe like 5% human input hai, then it's really not worth it anymore. And it's actually creating a worse workforce that is actually disposable. And at this point, I don't want to think of what's going to happen. Creativity is gone. AI is, pushing everything out in terms of content. And what would be the point then? Where's the emotion?
मुझे एक जो खदशा होता है, और मैं काफ़ी इस वाले थॉट को लेकर डरता भी हूँ, कि जो हमारे डिस्टोपियन फ्यूचर जो हम पढ़ते थे ना मूवीज़ में और देखते थे और किताबें पढ़ते थे, कि जिसमें देयर इज़ दिस वन ऑल कंट्रोलिंग एंटिटी, जैसे 1984 थी जॉर्ज ऑरवेल की, राइट? तो मैं यहाँ पे दो एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि जब से सेल फोन्स आए हैं, आई हैव स्टार्टेड फॉरगेटिंग ऑल द लैंडलाइन एंड सेल फोन नंबर्स जो कि मुझे गिनती पे याद थे. मुझे अपने घर वालों को भी याद नहीं, रिसर्च करना पड़ता है.
एग्जैक्टली.
नंबर 2, जिन दोस्तों के या जिन रिश्तेदारों के घर आप जाते थे बस में या रिक्शे में, आज गूगल मैप के ज़रिए ही जाते हैं. कहते हैं यार पता नहीं वो गली बंद है. होगा अब एआई जो आ गया है ना, जो आपने बात की कि आर क्रिएटिविटी इज़ गोइंग ऑन अ डाउनवर्ड स्पाइरल. अब इससे होगा क्या कि हम सोचना समझना बंद कर देंगे. हमारी इमेजिनेशन ख़त्म हो जाएगी एंड इवेंचुअली हमारे इमोशंस भी उसके साथ टाटा बाय बाय हो जाएंगे.
Not just our imagination and our creativity, but also our intuitiveness.
Yes.
Like the idea of looking for things, of trying to find out. एक ज़माना होता था, let's go back to the 90s, जब कराची में या पाकिस्तान में we just used to have PTCL और Jazz और Ufone were like पता नहीं कहाँ से आई थी. पाकटेल होता था एक ज़माने में, but let's not go.
ईंट जैसा फोन होता था.
I would have actually wanted that. I mean, carrying a briefcase type चीज़, उसके अंदर से एक हैंडसेट निकल रहा है. I'm like, that was actually
उसका एंटेना आज के फोन से लंबा होता था.
Oh God, yes, एंटेना. और वो बीच में एक ब्रिक फोन्स आए थे 80s में. हाँ, तो even then that thing did not have the kind of processing power that this thing has now. ठीक है. उस वक्त क्या होता था, आपके पास हर साल 2 मोटे मोटे इंडेक्सेस आते थे PTCL वालों के, या उस वक्त होती थी TIP, टेलीफोन इंडस्ट्रीज ऑफ पाकिस्तान. आई होप आई एम गेटिंग दैट राइट, मुझे नहीं पता. 2 इंडेक्सेस आती थी, A to H and then onwards to Z. ठीक है.
पीले रंग के पेपर होता था.
द येलो पेजेस कहते थे उनको, लेकिन येलो पेजेस वैसे कमर्शियल होता था. ये टेलीफोन इंडेक्स होती थी फॉर द रेजिडेंशियल्स. ठीक है. एंड दैट इज व्हाट यू वुड डू, यू वुड लुक फॉर स्टफ. आधा टाइम तो मैं सिर्फ बैठ के उसमें अपने और अपने पप्पो वालों के, अपने चच्चू वालों के नंबर्स देख रहा था.
मिल गए,
ओ मिल गए, ये यहाँ है,
अंकल मिल गए, आंटी मिल गई.
एग्जैक्टली राइट. एंड देन उसके अलावा यू वुड हैव कैमरास जिनके लिए आप पूरा एक हफ्ता वेट करते थे डेवलप होने के लिए. उसमें से
24 तस्वीरों के लिए,
24 तस्वीरों के लिए, आधी से ज़्यादा तो ब्लर आती थी, वो एक अलग कहानी. बट देयर वाज दिस क्यूरियोसिटी, देयर वाज दिस एक्साइटमेंट, एक फीवर पिच होता था. अगर मेरे वालिद साहब जो हैं वो कैमरास में पिक्चर्स ले लेते थे, इट वुड टेक अ वीक. मंडे हमें पता होता था कि यार बस वो मंडे को पिक्चर्स डेवलप होके आनी है, एंड वी बी लाइक अब्बू आने वाले हैं 9 बजे, एंड देन यू वुड हैव अ चांस टू सी दोस पिक्चर्स. एंड मेरे भाई मैं पहले देखूंगा. That humanity is gone. That point of यार ये देखो मैंने आज पिक्चर ली है, okay fine, स्टोरी पे लगा दो. That's it. I mean, like क्या हो जाएगा, that's the likes है. But it's like this reactive component.
Memories होती थी, हम उसको as a print album रखते थे.
No, I'm not saying that it's not a time saver. Obviously, yes, print photographs हटने के पीछे there's an environmental benefit. That's, I mean, I would not argue with that. ठीक है, but that human attentiveness, that human curiosity, that excitement, I don't think it's there anymore. And on top of that, I don't know if you've heard this story, but I keep hearing it all the time. In fact, I've read it at one point. All hail the mighty Steve Jobs for creating Apple and for whatever, and for iPhones and all that stuff. But when asked, when he was still alive, that what devices do your kids use and how often do they have screen time and how often do they do, computer work in school, his answer was actually shocking. He said, I don't give devices to my kids at home. I don't let them have screen time. And their schools do not have that. I mean, they do, but they have limited screen time or computer time. the host was shocked and they asked him why. And he said, well, it's simply put because we didn't have these devices. And that's what made us want to create them.
Exactly.
If I give them these devices now, chances are they will not have that creative spark anymore. Oh, I already got this screen. What's left? So they need to have something to work on. The school system where Steve Jobs' kids were at the time obviously let them do different things in search of creativity, for curiosity, for developing newer technical skills. But because that screen time was eliminated from their lives, not exactly eliminated, more like curbed probably. I don't know how honest that account is, but it made me think. It made me think, if I have this screen right now, and if the future generations have this screen or this computer in their hands right now, how is it going to impact their long-term creative intuitiveness?
Yeah.
How intuitive are they going to be in 10 years time? Will they be able to create something new? And it's another funny story because abhi recently मैं देख रहा था, I was at my daughter's sports day, and ज़ाहिर सी बात है हर parent के पास जो है वो अपनी वो चीज़ें हैं, अपने स्मार्टफोन से बैठ के रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं. And there was this little girl, she had one of those pink digital cameras.
Okay.
It's a digital camera, it's not even a phone. ठीक है, and उसमें option होता है कि you can actually print a small picture.
Oh, Polaroid type.
Yeah, Polaroid type, exactly, right? So the point is, now you're seeing a sort of like a regression. ठीक है, स्मार्टफोन नहीं है हाथ में, वो सिर्फ डिजिटल कैमरा है, एंड उससे वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ बैठ के पिक्चर्स ले रही है या वीडियोस रिकॉर्ड कर रही है. आई थिंक दैट ऑप्शन इज स्टिल देयर, बट व्हाट डज दैट डू? It takes away the distractions. आपने pictures ले ली, ठीक है, fine, but now you're going to go to Instagram and look at something else. Now you're going to go to Facebook or WhatsApp and बैठ के doom scrolling करना start कर देंगे. That little digital camera that she has in her hands, sure, it's a retro throwback. अच्छा है, nice. But it also avoids distractions. Phone देखना नहीं पड़ेगा उसको. I don't know if it was the parents' decision or the kids' decision, but, I like that. It's cool. And you know what? I would like to have a different camera, not in my phone. Why not?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we talked about AI. So talking about AI, which is leading us towards a dystopian future. So मैं कभी कभी सोचता हूँ कि जो बुक शेल्व्स हैं, लाइब्रेरीज़ हैं, बुक स्टोर्स हैं, वहाँ पे डिस्टोपियन फ्यूचर की किताबों को करंट अफेयर्स के सेक्शन में होना चाहिए.
Oh,
Do you agree to that?
why not? I mean, they should be, and if they're not already, then चलें, let's go to a bookstore and do it. करके आ जाते हैं.
reshuffle कर दें.
हाँ, reshuffle करते हैं. पता चल जाएगा लोगों को. The only problem is that people may not read them. Because I feel that people are out of touch with reading and reading important things, especially non-fiction. And I'll be honest, I can sort of relate to that because at one point I did not read non-fiction. Ask any student right now what is their least liked subject. Favoriting is a different thing. Yeah, I don't like math. Okay, but chances are people do like math. Yeah, I don't like physics. Ask them what their least liked subject is, and 9 out of 10 are probably going to reply history. And that is actually alarming because we keep forgetting our history. We keep forgetting different things that happen or have happened. And because we don't have that link to our histories, we don't have that connection to our roots, we don't know what Karachi was like. We don't know what our past was like. We don't know the struggles that we went through. सबको पता है कि August 14, 1947, it was Independence Day, and बहुत सारे struggles हुए. What were those struggles?
Yeah.
How did that happen? ठीक है, maybe, her 14th August या her 25th December को जिन्ना की फिल्म चल जाती है on Geo or any other channel. Great movie, by the way. Recommended watch. But there is so much material. There are so many books that tell you how the Muslim League was formed, how the freedom struggle started, what were the causes. And it's an amazing story when it's told like that. It's like an epic struggle. Okay, if you read it, if you watch the documentary, you learn so many different things that you've taken for granted in your own life. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I started a few years ago reading nonfiction.
Okay.
One of the biggest provokers of that was this speech by Shashi Tharoor. He's an Indian politician in the Congress, and used to be the sports minister, very fancy guy,
Yeah.
likes using English a lot.
He has a very strong vocabulary.
Oh God, yes, vocabulary. I wouldn't want to have a conversation with the guy unless he can say stuff in words with one syllable. If he can do that, sure. But he gave this very interesting speech about reparations by the British Empire to India, and the entire speech is 20 minutes long or something, and he talks about how the British Empire colonized the entire subcontinent, including India and modern day Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all of that, even Afghanistan, and how the empire looted systematically the entire empire. One of the biggest things that he mentioned that actually took me by surprise was that before the British Raj took over, before the arrival of the British Empire into India, the entire subcontinent's GDP was 24%. We're talking about just this region, and we're talking about back then it was the Mughal Empire.
Yeah.
By the time 1947 happened, and by the time British left, the entire economy share was 4%.
Wow. 20% decrease.
Yes. And the reason? Because everything that was valuable in India was taken away to serve the British. And it's a huge story. And I read most of it in this book called Inglorious Empire by Shashi Tharoor. And that kind of got me into a decolonization journey. I'm reading more and more books about history now. I'm reading more and more books about, the partition plan and everything, and trying to find out what happened in the 90s in Pakistan, what happened in the 80s, and all those decades. And it's revealing. And it's a part of our history, part of our timeline. We're not separate from it. We need to be part of that timeline. And if we're not, then we're just going to look around and saying, why are things the way they are? Why are the roads busted? Why is the government so corrupt? क्यों है ये सब? क्यों? क्योंकि भाई आपको नहीं पता how we got here, and you need to know how we got here. It's also alarming that you mentioned a dystopian scenario. There's this very nice library called Liaquat Memorial Library.
Yes, very beautiful place.
It's a very beautiful place, and I live right across from it. A few days ago, a friend of mine, he posted a picture of it, and all I could see were desks, students reading, and no bookshelves. A library with no bookshelves. A library with no books.
It's like a body without a soul.
And the management says, people keep stealing books. So we just got rid of them. How does a library not have books? How is that knowledge not important? And sure, yeah, civic responsibility is a different thing. I was always thinking maybe I'll go give my books over there. I keep forgetting, even though it's right across from my house. But where am I going to put it? There's no bookshelf. There's no repository for knowledge there anymore. A library with no books is exactly like you said, a body without a soul, a heart with no reason to live.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes me wonder where we're heading as a society. If we don't have access to that knowledge, and if all we have is Chat GPT telling us ye tha, which is probably, an algorithm programmed by another person anyway who may be biased, then what are you going to believe? And that's why that intuitiveness, that human intuitiveness is important.
It's very much needed.
Yes, and without it, I don't want to imagine what may happen.
Interesting कि आपने बात की अभी कि AI is sort of giving us a direction to move towards to whatever future that is. मेरे जहन में अभी कहानी आई है वॉली जो पिक्सार की
वॉली
जिसके अंदर वो जो ह्यूमन पायलट है he takes directions from this auto जो उनका AI पायलट
Give me the plant.
Yeah. और जितने भी लोग हैं उस एक्सियम शिप पे वो सारे ओबीस हो जाते हैं, ओवरवेट हो जाते हैं, वो चल नहीं पाते क्योंकि उनको उस रियलिटी में रखा गया है कि भाई दुनिया जो है वो आपकी ख़त्म हो चुकी है, वहाँ पे कुछ नहीं है. बट इनफैक्ट जब मूवी के एंड में वो लोग वापस आते हैं तो दे सी साइंस ऑफ लाइफ. सो आई थिंक AI इज़ ऑल्सो डूइंग द सेम विद अस.
It is.
कि उसमें हमारी क्रिएटिविटी जा रही है, हमारी इमेजिनेशन ख़त्म हो रही है, हमारी क्यूरियोसिटी जो है वो ख़त्म हो रही है और हम बस एक ही डगर पे जा रहे हैं.
Exactly right. Like I think of another example as well, and this is what it is. अभी क्या हो रहा है? You've got people sitting in drawing rooms or lying down on their beds watching big screen TVs और उसमें वो same dramas देख रहे हैं, and they're cut off from reality. वो dramas repetitive एक cycle बनाती है. The same actors playing the same characters, screaming the same things, doing the
Script
same.
भी almost same होती
The
है.
script is the same. साजिशें भी वही हैं, बस थोड़े ऊपर नीचे हैं. वो उसके लड़की के पीछे, वो उसके पीछे. And okay, first of all, I don't understand के why these लड़कियां don't have wills of their own, and that was another reason why I wrote Legends of Karachi. Why is that journey of self-discovery missing from people, and why is everyone just being guided for societal norms कि भाई compromise कर लो, ऐसी ऐसी बातें होती रहती हैं, and I don't understand why that is, and that's why I wrote Legends of Karachi. Maybe because I never saw that kind of example in my own family. Maybe because I grew up around my mom and my aunt who had always spoken their mind all the time. ठीक है? And that's why it's a shock to me. My father also, when he was doing characters, he made it a point that women were on equal footing. And where they weren't, they should be.
Yeah.
Sindhi dramas in particular, particularly about the issues that happen in rural Sindh, like Karo Kari or like Vatta Satta, where patriarchy is rampant and deciding women's lives. That is the kind of story that I was grown up with and attached to, rather than what I'm seeing right now. And the example that you just gave of Wall-E, I also think of another example. There was this Bruce Willis movie a very long time ago.
Fifth Element?
No, not that one. That one was there too. But there was a movie called The Surrogates.
Yes.
The Surrogates is practically what's happening right now, and practically what the metaverse is going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to be sitting in your own little room, in your own little house, and you're probably going to have an avatar element going out in the world. That is a much more extreme idea. Okay, fine, he's got like this robotic body, and it's moving out, and if it dies, then it's just him. But what is that if not what the metaverse is going to be like? आपकी अपनी designed एक avatar बन रहा है, you're sending it out in the metaverse to do things for you. ठीक है, जो virtual reality display है वो क्या कर रहा है? It's letting you live that life. It's cutting you off from reality. And remember that scene in which the real Bruce Willis has to step out into the real world. That is like what it would be like अगर मैं 2 हफ्तों के लिए अपने घर से बाहर नहीं निकलूं और अपने computer पे लगा रहा हूँ. I look and, oh my God, what is this? This is the real world. You're so detached. You're just like a fish out of water, and then you're just being put into water. And you realize, what is this supposed to be?
जिस तरह का concept Ernest Cline ने Ready Player One में दिया है.
Oh yeah, exactly. That was actually a very nice movie too. Another Back to the Future throwback उसमें भी. I love the time when वो DeLoreans में आ जाती है. But yes, that's the whole point.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे मैं एक बात करना चाहूँगा क्योंकि हम जो रेफरेंसेस ले रहे हैं वो मूवीज़ के हैं which were adopted from books. तो obviously मेरा तो जवाब books है, लेकिन books और movies या depend करता है.
Because I have a fondness for both. And yes, nowadays I wouldn't say anything about the movies that are coming up now. I'm actually kind of not watching movies or TV shows anymore, partly because of my lack of interest. Generally, I don't see much originality happening. A lot of it feels very generic and repetitive. I have a huge appreciation for retro movies when people were throwing their heart into it rather than wondering box office kya hoga uska. I look at that aspect of it. But at certain points, I think that books are obviously going to be books. They're the ones that they are derived by. At the same time, I think there are certain movies which actually ended up becoming better than the books and taking a life of their own. I'm not going to mention the big blockbusters, but think of movies like Fight Club. Fight Club is based on an amazing book. And the movie itself is amazing. But a lot of people will know that Fight Club is a movie. Not a lot of people are going to know that it actually was a book. This was actually what happened with the writer Chuck. His last name is unpronounceable for me. Shashi Tharoor could do it. And when people are talking about Fight Club and ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai, the first rule about Fight Club and blah, 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 he's in that conversation and he says, I wrote that. Nah, no, you didn't. And he tells him, yes, I am. Google me. He wrote the book. So at certain points, the movies take a life of their own. And, a large part of it is Brad Pitt and Edward Norton doing that movie. At certain points, certain books are probably immortalized, even though the book probably may not have been good. I'm probably going to get stoned for saying this. I thought American Psycho, the book, was not as good. In fact, it was not a very good book. But the movie American Psycho is a masterpiece. Christian Bale, obviously, but it was a much better script, even though it was inspired from a book which, if you read it, it has a certain capitalist message or an anti-capitalist
वो तो
message.
रखना होता है.
Obviously, hai. But I felt that it was overdone, and it was not exactly something that a normal reader or, even the most intellectual reader would 100% appreciate. I would give the book maybe 3.5 stars out of 5, but the movie I would give like 5 stars all the way. And that just goes to show, the landscape is unpredictable. And, well, that's the beauty of it. You discover what is there to find out.
Okay, so आज हमारे साथ अली समेजो के साथ एक और गेस्ट है जो अली अपने साथ लाए हैं. दिस इज़ अ डॉल होगी या वो है एक्शन फिगर ऑफ मार्टी मक्फ्लाई फ्रॉम बैक टू द फ्यूचर. तो मैंने ये नोट किया है कि आपके सोशल मीडिया पेज पे जब भी आप अपनी किताबों की तस्वीरें लेते हो साथ में कोई ना कोई कैरेक्टर होता है, या तो फ्लैश होता है या स्पाइडरमैन होता है, थॉर होता है. तो उसका क्या कनेक्शन है?
थॉर नहीं है मेरे पास.
थॉर नहीं
लेना है यार, नहीं मिल रहा अच्छा वाला कोई. सारे बेकार हैं. It's just that I was talking about this with my wife yesterday, and I've realized that, there are a lot of things as a kid that I could not do. And one of the things that I could not do was have collectibles.
Okay.
I mean, hota hai, so yeah. That now that I'm approaching my 40s and even through my 30s, I've realized that I'm the same kid I was maybe 20 years ago. Now I have money. And if
I think for you that's an achievement.
Oh, it is. Yeah, and I want to be that kid. Life is not supposed to be completely serious, right? What's the point of living a life if you cannot be a kid at heart?
Yeah.
Now, for some people, they find joys in traveling. They find joys in going to restaurants. They find joys in, living a lifestyle of books. I like buying books, right? But there's a little part of me that enjoys getting collectibles.
Yeah.
And that's probably what sets my posts apart. I like pairing one of my books with an action figure or with a different collectible or something that I have. I got this idea from my kids, by the way. Hey, Dad, let's put this guy in next to it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, why not? Let's do it. I have comic books too. And I've got Superman and Batman action figures. So I paired those two guys with one of their comic books. Why not? It looks good. It adds a little bit more reality to it.
Great.
Legends of Karachi. I put 2 vigilante characters next to it, and because there are certain vigilante characters in there, like so why not pair them with action figures?
Yeah.
It looks perfectly fine and acceptable. So it's just my expression of being a kid at heart. I have collectibles. I like collecting them, and I just like pairing them with my favorite books. And sure, I spend a little bit more money than I should be, but at least it's not drugs. It could have been drugs. At least it's not drugs. Kidding.
Okay, so we talked a lot about Legend of Karachi. इसके बारे में बताएं. Damaged, जो कि आपका debut novel था.
Yeah.
So what is it about?
So Damaged is a collection of short stories. It is my debut book. But interestingly, it is not the first book I wrote. Okay. Legends of Karachi will always be the first book I started writing.
Okay.
And there were certain stories that I was writing along the same time that I realized would not fit into Legends of Karachi.
Okay.
But they started taking a life of their own. And while I was developing those stories, I also hit upon a new idea of having these short stories between just 2 people.
Okay.
Conversations between people who have been traumatized, who have been damaged, technically. And I put them in very different situations while also looking at some of the problems that people in Pakistan face. Of course, it's universal in this case, and it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse, bullying, high school bullying, child abandonment, and breakups, even breakups. And domestic abuse as well, and lots of other things, second marriages, lots of other topics that people get traumatized by. And I wanted to write stories that were darker. Yes, you have the same setup, but the same question struck me. What if they took a different track?
Yeah. What if?
Yes, the what if, right? What if the guy who got bullied gets his. What if the person who was sexually assaulted gets theirs? There are some dangerous themes in here. I've also, talked about suicide. I've also talked about death. I've also talked about wanting to kill someone, because in your life, I'm sure, Karachi mein rehte hue, khas taur pe, there's always going to be someone you like, man, I wish I could kill that guy.
मेरी तो बहुत लंबी लिस्ट है.
Yeah. What if?
Yeah, what if?
And the people who read Damaged are like, oh, I'm not giving ideas to people, but yes. So all of these stories came around by looking at the things I was looking at for Legends of Karachi, but I realized that it wouldn't fit in LOK, and so I decided, let's do something else. And before I knew it, the project took a life of its own. 15 short stories. I finished them before I finished Legends of Karachi. When I was publishing, I was looking for a publisher for both of them. Because I could not find one at the time, I decided to go the self-publishing route. Rather than go with Legends, I decided, let's see how Damaged does. I have a completely finished product. It's smaller, and at least it would get my name out there.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to say, alhamdulillah, that Damaged is probably the book that most people ask about a lot. It is probably, it's very close to my heart, because I didn't think that it would actually make it that far, but it has. And some of the best appreciation that I've gotten for it, and some of the most heartfelt, is there's a story in it where I write about the death of a parent and how it affects a child. And someone who I did not know, completely did not know, texts me up and says that I read that story and it reminded me of the death of my father, which, by the way, that story is about the death of my father. And the person was like, I cried when I read it. And I think as an author, that is what I wanted the most. I wanted my stories to touch people.
To create a connection with all the readers.
Yes, and for them to find some kind of answer. Maybe not the answer they're looking for, but an answer.
At least some sympathy.
Yes, absolutely. Empathy, sympathy, and a connection, like you said, and also wanting them to have some comfort as well. Probably not a solution. I'm not offering solutions. If you want solutions, you need to go to Reddit.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, or maybe Reddit, but I am trying to offer people some comfort. And the why I want to do that is because maybe I've been through the same, and maybe I just feel like that empathy needs to be there.
वही तो है ना कि ऑथर्स अपने दिल की बात ही अपने कैरेक्टर्स के थ्रू लोगों को बताते हैं.
Yeah.
And everything, I mean, fiction में every story begins with a what if.
Yes, it does.
And I think we should be continuously able to create these ideas and vivid imaginations.
Yeah.
और उसके लिए आपको अपने अंदर का बच्चा जागना.
Well, there's this very famous saying, I've forgotten where it comes from, but it was that all autobiography is mostly fiction, and most fiction is almost all autobiographical. All authors write their lives or what they feel like their lives could have been in fiction. So, that's probably what I've done here. But there are other people's lives who I've also touched upon, and I hope I've done justice.
Yeah, I think you have, because I was intrigued and I was amazed by reading all the stories of your this book, Legends of Karachi.
Thank you.
Or now we are coming to the end of this podcast, and any word of advice that you would like to give to the youth to become readers?
Oh, good grief. किताबों से मोहब्बत करें. And I don't mean, जाओ bookstore and seek out books.
किताबें भर के ले आओ नहीं.
वैसे, to be fair, I would do that.
मजा आता है उसमें.
डब्बा भर के निकलो के IBF से, and then do whatever you can. I mean, fall in love with books that are going to move you, rather than buying books that are just going to be like fillers and you're just going to dump anyway.
Yeah.
Go to Sunday Bazaar and you'll find lots of books that people dump. But go to a certain point in Sunday Bazaar where there are actually interesting books that tell you about people, that tell you about history, that tell you about events in your life. find answers in books rather than online. आपको एक छोटा सा bite size answer मिल जाएगा, but a bite size answer is not enough. A bite size samosa is not enough either.
Yeah, हमारे लिए तो
No
बिल्कुल भी नहीं.
disrespect to the bite size samosa. But the point is, you want something that will fulfill you. And once you start, believe me, once you start on that journey, you're not going to stop. You're going to be like, आप footnotes में जाके देखें कि उसके पीछे क्या लिखा हुआ है, कहाँ से information आई आपके पास. And then find that literature. I would start looking at Pakistani authors who have written history, who have commented on historical events, and look for things that make you seek out answers and see what's happening. Lots of controversies going on. Why is the world the way it is? You'll see for certain कि आपको वो answers मिलेंगे as long as आप किताबों के साथ वो मोहब्बत develop करें. Don't think of it as like a chore. Don't think of it like कि बस
Compulsion है.
हाँ compulsion हो तो from the heart होनी चाहिए.
हाँ.
I want to know this. I
वही वाली-
need to know this.
वही वाली बात कि you have to be curious
Yes.
to explore books.
Exactly. You have to be. And until and unless you go seek that out, you're just going to end up doom scrolling on WhatsApp groups जहाँ पे एक अंकल बता रहे होंगे बेटा मैं बताता हूँ क्या होता है. नहीं. Go look for authorities. Go look for people who have actually researched this thing. ये किताब ऐसे नहीं publish होती. ये इतनी मोटी मोटी history की किताब है. It's years of work.
Yes.
It's years of research. It's years of struggle and hard work and sleepless nights.
Yes.
Why? To keep people like us informed. To keep people like us equipped with that knowledge
Yeah.
of what is right and what is wrong.
Exactly.
And that is what AI does not want you to have.
Yes.
It wants you to be compliant ताकि जाके आप एक company में छोटी मोटी सी job करें and then you're just like a skilled worker.
Yeah.
But you need to be enlightened, and you need books for that. And that's why you need to have that love for books.
So exactly, developing the love for books is going to make our youth more active and conscious
Yep.
about themselves and self-aware.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Ali, for being part of Between the Lines. It was a pleasure talking to you.
I loved being here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I greatly appreciate this opportunity to talk about books and everything under the sun.
Great. So this was our today's episode of Between the Lines with Muhammad Ali Samejo. अगर आप भी एक लिखारी हैं, मुसन्निफ हैं, ऑथर हैं, पोइट हैं या आपका किसी तरह से ताल्लुक़ है पब्लिशिंग से या लिटरेचर से, तो हमसे रब्ता कीजिए. हम भी आपको अपने शो में एज गेस्ट बुलाएंगे. अगले शो तक के लिए इजाज़त दीजिए. मैं हूँ मोहम्मद उमर इफ्तिखार. लिखते रहें, पढ़ते रहें. मार्टी मैकफ्लाई के साथ. अल्लाह हाफ़िज़.